Hey, what's going on, everybody? Dan the Ultra Dad here for another video. Hope you're doing well tonight. I'm going to jump right into this video because it's going to take a little while. It's not going to be a short one. This is my 275-mile review of the Asics TRABUCO Max 2. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? My name is Dan. I am the Ultra Dad. This is my YouTube channel about ultra running and running in general. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Asics TRABUCO Max 2. This shoe is a beast, to put it lightly. I love this shoe. This is, I would say, my favorite trail shoe that I've ever worn. And so I wanted to get into it and share with you why I think that. And the first thing I'm going to start with is kind of a rewind back to my original review of this shoe. I did it about 6 months ago when I first purchased these. I had worn them for, I think, 25 to 30 miles. And so I had a couple main points that I made during that video that I want to kind of rehash with you here. So number one is the outsole of these shoes. Now, you can look at it. I don't even have to get the shoes close to the camera here, and you can tell that this is an aggressive outsole. And it does just a fabulous job of keeping you stable and making sure that you don't slip in wet conditions, muddy conditions. And, you know, I thought that, and I mentioned that in my review after 30 miles of running in them, and that did not change over the next 240 some miles. So these shoes are incredible in wet and muddy conditions, and I cannot say anything bad about them in regards to their performance in wet conditions. So that is probably the number one and the absolute best thing about these shoes that has done well throughout the time I've owned them, and they still do well. They are designed very well so that they get a good grip on the mud or the surface that you're on. And, you know, again, I just can't say anything bad about the outsole of these shoes. So huge plus, a huge positive thing about the Asics TRABUCO Max 2. One of the other things I mentioned during my original review is how plush these shoes are. If you look at the heel cup, you can tell it's about a 1/4 inch, maybe, you know, 1/2 inch of cushioning around your heel. And that is just so nice in these shoes. It makes it very comfortable around your heel. And it also, I think, really prevents blisters from forming very much in these shoes. In fact, I had no blisters on my ankle or around the heel cup area. It was just very comfortable and feels really good when you put your foot in these shoes. All right. And then I also mentioned during the review just the cushion and the midsole of this shoe. You can see it is quite a bit of midsole. It's very cushioned. So when I first wore these shoes after 25, 30 miles, this cushion, this midsole was a huge part of why I liked these shoes. They're just very comfortable. They're very cushioned and soft, but at the same time, they were very responsive on the trails. And so I'll have a few comments about that as I talk to you about how it's performed over the next 270 miles. One final thing I thought that was worth mentioning that I said in my original review was the upper of these shoes. And if I can get it close enough, you can see how there's holes in the upper, and that really did lend to quite a bit of breathability. And I thought that was really nice. The only downside with that, though, was that when water would come up to the top, it did go through those holes, and so it did create some issues with getting these shoes wet. If you can see, though, there are the overlays along the edge, so that really only comes into play when you completely submerge these shoes in water, which I do quite often when I'm going through creeks and things like that. So, it's worth thinking about when it comes to the Asics Trabuco Max 2 shoes. All right, so let's now get into how these shoes have performed over the past 275 miles. So let's talk first about what I did over these miles. So I used these shoes primarily for my 2023 ultra trail running season, and that included all of my training for my ultras, and then it also included the ultra races that I ran this year. Number one, I did the Mohican 100, and I wore these shoes, the Trabuco Max 2s, the entire race. I didn't do any shoe changes. I just wore this from 0 miles to 100 miles. They really performed fantastically. They've performed so well during that. Fantastically, is that a word? I don't know, but they performed incredibly well during the Mohican 100. I had no problems with them at all. There was some mud too. Of course, they're like the mud kings, so they're really, really great in the mud. And I was so happy with them during the Mohican 100. And then I also took them along with me for the Never Summer 100K out in Colorado. Much different surface, much more rocky, obviously more mountainous. And again, they did very, very well. I think the lugs on the bottom actually helped a lot with the, really uncertain and, kind of rocky surface, at times gravelly. And, I thought they did very well during that race. There's a few other things I want to mention too, so let's get into those. Number one, the physical performance of the materials. So if you look here, you can tell really no problems with any of these seams here between the midsole and the upper. No tearing. I've had some tearing in the past from other shoes, especially because the fabric gets wet and then weakens, and then if it's stressed at all, it tends to tear and rip. With these shoes, had absolutely no problems, you can tell. In fact, I'm really hard pressed to see any damage here. There's a little scrape or something here in the heel cup. Not sure what that's from. Really not sure. Maybe a rock got caught between my ankle or my heel and the heel cup here. Looking at it though, there's really no tears, nothing's fallen apart. Very, very happy with how these shoes perform from a durability standpoint as far as the materials. The midsole, just to let you know, really is almost like it was when I reviewed this at mile 25. No problems. It's still very cushioned, still very responsive. I just took these out, as you can see, on the trails yesterday, and man, I mean, it still feels great. The only thing that I did find after using these back in my other review, and even still, is you really do need to use this final eyelet chain or lace hole here, whatever you want to call it, because if you don't use that, I did feel like the shoe was a little bit loose. But once you use that, whether you use a traditional runner's knot or you just do like I do, kind of the lazy dad, just use the eyelet like you would any other eyelet. Once you crank that down a bit, then the upper is kind of fits your foot like a glove. So not an issue to me, because they do provide you with that final hole there, that final eyelet to be able to use. But just keep that in mind if you're in the market for these shoes, because I have to think that these shoes are going to be for sale here during this time of year. So although I basically have nothing but positive things to say about the Asics Trabuco Max 2 shoes, there is one thing that I think is a bit of a drawback with these shoes. It's a positive thing and a negative thing, and that is the stack height. So the stack height, of course, is why these shoes feel so good, I think. It provides so much midsole protection, and that's again from the heel all the way up to the toe. It is a very high stack height, and so I'm not sure how they could get around that and still provide all that cushion. They can't, I don't think, but that is certainly something that is a drawback with this shoe. I had a few times where I rolled my ankle. I recovered. It didn't really injure me, but if you're going to be, running with a lot of roots and rocks, you do have to be careful about that. So just keep that in mind when you're going to buy this shoe. If you're me and, you're not running super fast, then I don't think you have to be concerned with that. If you're going to be running very fast on the trails, then you might want to consider a different shoe. I will also say this though. In my original review, I said that these shoes were not very fast, that they were too big, that they're better for the longer ultra races where you're not going to be running super fast. I have to disagree with that a bit. I have run with these at a higher rate of speed. It's just when you do that, you are going to risk the potential that you're going to, roll your ankle. If you're willing to accept that risk, then I say go for it. These are very responsive shoes. They're very comfortable because of that cushion height and because of that stack height. But if you're very concerned about rolling an ankle, then, again, that's going to be the risk you're going to take. And it's just it's a factor for you to consider when you're looking at whether you want to buy these shoes. But overall, the durability over the past 275 miles has been excellent with these shoes. And I highly recommend these shoes to anybody who wants a durable, very comfortable ultra running shoe that's going to take you, from 0 miles all the way up to over 100 milers. I'd wear these pretty much across the board. So anyway, have great thoughts about these shoes and just have so much good to say about them. I do want to know what you think about them though. So definitely hit me up in the comments below if you've had a chance to pick these up and try them out. I've heard really a lot of positive comments, but I'd love to hear if there's something about them that you didn't like too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my review of the Asics TRABUCO Max 2 after 275 miles. All right, that's all I had to say. It was a lot, but thanks for joining me. Have a good evening, and we'll catch you in the next one.